Thank you for being here. I hope all of you are doing fine. So let's now start. So we'll practically very briefly revise what we talked about last week, namely phonetics. And then we'll do the exercises from the handout. We'll also go through some simple exam questions related to this particular area, and that's it for today. So let's start very briefly recapping what we said last time. So what's phonetics generally speaking, and which subdiscipline of phonetics out of 4 of them did we focus on last time? So what's phonetics in a single sentence? Well, yes, Vanya?
Phonetics is the study of words, their creation, and how we can classify them.
No. That's what morphology studies. So morphology actually studies words and how we create them and so on. So morphology really studies words. For a word such as unsuccessfully, morphology would say, hey, there is the root here, which is success. There is the prefix un, and there are 2 suffixes, full, as in successful or unsuccessful, and also the adverb forming suffix, ly, so unsuccessfully. So no, that's actually not the thing that that phonetics deals with. So what is it? So Vanya, please once again.
Phonetics is the letters, letter sounds and their corresponding letters.
It's not about the corresponding. Okay, fine. Okay, so what does the very term phonetics come from? It comes from a Greek word. We mentioned that at the very beginning last time. So it's somewhere here. It's here.
Well, yeah, sound and voice.
Yeah, so it has to do something with sounds, of course, with speech sounds. Now that we're dealing with phonetics and with language, generally speaking, actually. So what is it that it studies then?
The creation of sounds.
In a way, yes, or the articulation, better to say. That's the technical term that's used in linguistics, the articulation of sounds. So how it is that we actually produce various speech sounds? What is it that our tongue does? What is it that our lips do? What is it that our velum does, mekonepse, and so on, as we produce various consonants, various vowels, various sounds that are in between vowels and consonants. Those are usually those approximate things, or approximants, as we mentioned last time. Okay, so phonetics, generally speaking, deals with, or actually there is a particular discipline of it that addresses the production of speech sounds. What is that subdiscipline of phonetics called, Vanya?
Acoustic phonetics?
No, that's not acoustic phonetics. No. Yeah, there is indeed acoustic phonetics, but acoustic phonetics actually deals with how speech sounds travel through the air. Namely, we really do need air for speech sounds to travel around. If we were in space, for example, that's to say, if we were in a surrounding where there is no air but vacuum, then no sound gets carried. And for example, a star can explode somewhere where we can in a way see it, but we wouldn't be able to hear it. So acoustic phonetics, here it is. This is the area of phonetics that actually studies the physical properties of speech sounds as they travel through the air. That's what acoustic phonetics does. So there are also auditory phonetics, there is forensic phonetics, and we also actually saw 2 video clips last time on it. So which aspect of phonetics, which subdiscipline of phonetics did we focus on primarily last time? And mind you, so namely phonology that we'll study the following 2 weeks also deals with speech sounds. So what is it then that phonetics deals with, which will actually become clearer once we have covered phonology as well. So which aspect of speech sounds does phonetics deal with? It's all here in the slide. It's somewhere here. Yeah, here it is.
The physical properties of speech.
Yeah, physical properties, which might not make, which might, I mean, which is obvious enough now, but when we start studying phonology, you'll see that phonology actually deals with something else as far as speech sounds are concerned. It deals with various abstract properties of speech sounds, as we'll see, but let's leave that for the next time. So once again, out of the 4 subdisciplines of phonetics, namely articulatory, acoustic, auditory, and forensic phonetics, which one of them did we focus on last time?
Articulatory.
Articulatory, or how the various speech sounds are produced. Fine, Vanya, thank you very much. Now we move on. So, of course, as we speak, the air comes out of our lungs and through the trachea jeldadoshnik, and then it comes to our larynx grkля, in which there are 2 really flexible and relatively small muscles that are actually quite important in speech production. So what are those muscles called? 2 little muscles or a pair of muscles called, and why are they important in speech production? So let's now hear yet another one of you. So that was Vanya. Anybody else now? Stefan, yes, please.
I can try. So we have the vocal cords, correct?
Indeed. So why are the vocal cords important in speech production or articulation?
Because like as you said last lesson, we have the voices and the voiced sounds. So...
Okay, but what gives voicing to sounds? And why are some sounds, as you say, voiced and some of them are voiceless? What gives voicing to them?
All right, so the vibrations of the muscles and the contracting of the muscles of the vocal cords.
Okay, so the vibration of those 2 muscles in our larynx, which maybe we cannot see very easily. It can actually be seen if we insert a particular kind of camera into the mouth and so on, but still we can feel it if we press the fingertips on our larynx. So if we do so, we'll see that, for example, in the creation or articulation of the S sound, or the F sound, they do not vibrate at all. However, in the production of the V sound, or the Z sound, or the V sound, they actually do vibrate. That's what gives voicing to sounds. Okay, and then we went through some pairs and also groups of voiced as opposed to voiceless consonants. Luca, did you want to tell us something? Luca?
Yes, I want to add that there are also other muscles that can be used to create sounds, such as the false vocal cords, for example. That are used
sorry, such as
the false vocal cords, or
yeah, indeed, the false vocal cords, and not only them. For example, in our lips, we have really quite a lot of different small muscles, which is why our lips are so, in a way, flexible, as opposed to the lips of the chimpanzees. So there are also muscles, obviously, in our lips. There are muscles in our cheeks and so on. But now we're focusing on voicing. That's why, well, we are concentrating on the vocal cords primarily. Okay, so that's as far as voicing is concerned, and we move on. So it is this that we have just talked about. What gives voicing to various sounds and how they can be grouped together into voiced and voiceless consonants practically. And now we move on to the place of articulation. So how do we determine the place of articulation of a particular consonant? What does it depend on? Yes, please, Milos?
By what organ do we use to make that sound?
But what does that mean? For example, in the creation of whatever, well, you can be more specific, Milos.
Like, when the air comes out of our lungs to make sound, it travels and it comes to contact like with vocal cords or lips or when our tongue, so it makes different sounds.
What types of what places of articulation are there? And you can actually be more specific with what you said, because very often it is actually several organs that combine together to create a particular sound. So it's typically not
like
one only.
Like
but it can be.
top of the mouth or teeth.
But what does that mean, the top of the mouth? When you say the top of the mouth, do you mean the upper lip or do you mean the hard palate? What do you mean by the top of the mouth?
The upper lip.
The upper lip. Okay. So
the teeth.
Okay, and the teeth. And what else? And you can once again be a little bit more specific about how it is exactly that we determine the place of articulation of a particular. So what places of articulation are there? How do we call them? Yeah. So what are the typical places of articulation of English consonants? What are they?
Bilabial.
Bilabial, what does that mean?
When we use our lips to make the sound.
Okay, it is not, okay, when we use our lips to make the sound, or better to say when we use our lips to stop, for example, the airflow coming out of the mouth so that some sounds get created. What are those sounds that are bilabial? And we needn't actually press them together entirely, yeah? Also m, and also w. There is quite a lot of movement of the lips in w, as in well, or something like that. So very well. So well primarily, w, as in window. So the first sound in window is also a bilabial sound. What other places of articulation are there?
Labiodental.
Okay, where do we have labiodentals?
We use our teeth and our lips also.
Okay, so indeed, in the production of the labiodental sounds, we use the practically the upper lip and the lower teeth. So once again, how and there are also sounds, as we can see and as we saw last time, that are interdental, alveolar, alveopalatal, velar, and glottal as far as the place or articulation is concerned. So once again, how is it, or how do we determine what the place or articulation of a particular speech sound is? How do we do so? By determining what?
If it is voiced.
No. That has to do with voicing, not with the place or articulation. No. You've got it all here in the slides. So it's here somewhere. So it's here now on the slide. So how is the place or articulation determined?
By what speech organ or constriction to the airflow?
Not by what speech organs or constriction. That's not the same thing. By what speech organs a constriction to the airflow coming out of the lungs is made. So once again, how is it that we determine the place of articulation of a particular speech sound? Well, by analyzing where or by what speech organs a constriction or an obstacle to the airflow coming out of the lungs is made. So if we make that constriction by actually, for example, pressing our lips together or approximating our lips, we get bilabial sounds. If we put our tongue in between our teeth, we get interdental sounds, because that is where the constriction to the airflow is made and that is coming out of our lungs. So the constriction is made here for the and the, as in this and thin. It is made by inserting the tongue in between the teeth. As far as the velar sound is concerned, why is their place of articulation velar? Why is it, Milos?
Because
why velar? What does that mean? Why are g, k, and velar? By the place of articulation.
Maybe because we use back of our tongue to pronounce it.
And what does that back of the tongue press against? Namely, how exactly is that obstacle to the airflow coming out of the lungs made? By pressing the back part of our tongue against what?
Palate.
No, then they would be palatal or alveopalatal. So no. Why are they called velar?
Then velum, I guess.
Yeah, then against the velum. What's the velum in Serbian or in English? What is it? How do we call it in Serbian? I talked about that. At length last time. So what's the velum, as you said correctly? What is it in Serbian? What's the term for it in Serbian? Mekonepce. Mekonepce. The thing at the back of our mouth, from the bottom of which there is that uvula hanging. Dakle, to je mekonepce sa kog visi ona, kako se zove, uvula, to je malo latinski, na srpskom bi to bila resica. Dakle, onaj meki deo, dakle, posle da tako kažem, krova usne duplja, to je ovo tvrdo nepce, dolazi meko nepce, bukvalno je meko, kad možemo da ga pritisnemo jezikom i ono se mrda. Sa tog mekog nepca i deo je mekog nepca visi ona resica. Kad pogledamo u grlo i vidi se ta resica, ili doktor može da pogleda u grlo i da kaže ovo je neka bakterijska infekcija, ili aha, sad je sve lepo prošlo nakon antibiotika, nema bakterija, generalno lepo izgleda i ta resica i zadnje nepce lepo izgleda i tako. So once again, why is the place of articulation of V of G, K and N velar? Well, because it is at that place that the obstacle to the airflow coming out of the lungs is made. Well, how exactly is it made? Well, by pressing the back of our tongue against the velum. That's why or against mekonepce. That's why they're called velar. Fine. Thank you, Miloš. We now move on. So please be able to identify, to actually say how we determine the place of articulation, and be also prepared to define why exactly there is the bilabial place of articulation. What makes it bilabial? What makes it labiodental? What makes it interdental or alveolar or alveopalatal or velar or glottal, and so on. And once again, do not learn anything of this by heart. Namely, you can simply think about what goes on as we produce some speech sounds. So even if we didn't have this table and we wanted to describe, for example, whatever, the very k sound, so k or s or f or something like that. Let's say f. Is it voiced or voiceless? Well, we can start pronouncing something like this. And we can also put the fingertips or like 2 fingertips on our larynx. Does our larynx vibrate because of the possible vibration of the vocal cords? It doesn't, so it is voiceless. Then f. What, once again, so it is voiceless by voicing, so to say. What is it by the place of articulation? Namely, when we say f, we press the upper lip and the lower teeth together. So consequently, it is a labiodental sound. What is it by the manner of articulation? Namely, it is so quite a lot of friction is made, puno trenja se stvara dok ga proizvodimo, dok artikulišemo ovaj glas. And why quite a lot of friction? Well, because when you press the upper teeth and the lower lips against one another, it is not a complete stop or an obstacle that is formed. So there is quite a lot of actually obstacle, but there are also spaces, for example, in between our teeth or something like that, that the air can come out of, producing a lot of friction. So you practically do not need this table at all. It is there simply to help you, but it is much more helpful to actually simply think logically, to simply rely on common sense, and in that way determine what the voicing, what the place of articulation and the manner of articulation of various consonants are. Let's now focus on this. So g, k, and n are all velar sounds, but what's the difference between them? And mind you, we encounter n not only in English, when we say English, we do not say English, but English. We also have it in Serbian, as in Anka, Banka, Stankovic, Brankovic, Milenkovic, something like that. So we can also say Brankovic, Stankovic, Milenkovic, and so on. But it is much more usual to say Stankovic, Brankovic, Milenkovic, and so on. So with the sound. So what's the difference between for example, g and sounds now that they're both velar and voiced. Mate?
Yeah, so basically when we say n is nasal.
So we're not talking about n. We're talking about
Okay, whatever. Basically it's nasal. So
yeah, okay.
air is coming out.
Why should it be nasal?
Sorry, why should it be nasal?
Yeah, why is it nasal?
Well, basically because air is coming out through our nostrils.
Okay, indeed, it comes out of the nose. So how is it different from the g sound, which is also velar?
Well,
a velar consonant.
G is a stop. So basically,
why should it be a stop?
Because the air stream stops and then it
what
lets go abruptly.
Makes it stop? What causes it to stop? You are right about everything you said. So what makes it stop? What makes that air stream stop?
I'm sorry, I'm not really sure. Maybe
well, I just mentioned it, let's say, a couple of minutes ago. Namely, what stops it when we say g, as in whatever, grease or something like that, is the fact that we practically push the back of our tongue against the velum. That's how we form this practically stop. That's why they're called stops or plosives. Once again, g, 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 or k, 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 and so on. So practically, we make a complete blockage to the airstream coming out of our lungs by pressing the back part of our tongue against the velum. Dakle, stavimo jezik o meko nepce ili prislonimo jezik o meko nepce. I zato se oni zovu odnosno zapravo na srpskom se kaže zadnjo nepčani. To je zaista jeste zadnje nepce. A postoji tvrdo nepce, to je odmah iznad jezika, da tako, ono je bukvalno tvrdo, to je sasvim bukvalno kost. Dok ovdje gdje imamo meko nepce nema kostiju, nego je prosto kao jedno tkivo. Eto tako. Okay, so in that sense, it is not only important to remember the place or to be aware of the place of articulation, but also the manner of articulation, because velar, for example, sounds can be different things according to the manner of articulation. The same goes for bilabial sounds, the same goes for alveopalatals, the same goes for alveolars, and so on. Okay, so be ready to talk about this, especially in the exam. We needn't go in every single detail. So I talked about that at great length last time. You could read about that in your books. You could get yourselves reminded about all these things from this PowerPoint presentation as well. So we're now just mentioning some of the key things here. How did we classify vowels, and how are vowels generally different from consonants? Let's hear 2 or 3 sentences on it and then move on to the handout. So how are vowels, generally speaking, different from consonants? And why are the speech sounds of a language, or why are the speech sounds, generally speaking, divided into, well, consonants and vowels? Why? What's so different about vowels that they have to be separated into a special group that's different from consonants? Yes, okay. What we have already heard Miloš. Let's now hear somebody else. We've already heard Stevan as well. Let's hear somebody else. Mariana.
The vowel sounds are created by a free flowing of the air.
Yeah, they're created by more or less free flowing of the air. So there is no major obstacle made by either lips, or, for example, pressing the lips against the teeth, or putting the tongue in between the teeth, or putting the tongue against the alveolar ridge, or putting the tongue against the alveolar palatal region, or putting the tongue against the velum, or something like that. No, the air simply goes out pretty much unobstructed, which is why vowels can typically be easily what? It's quite easy. Sung. Yeah, mogu lako da se pevaju. Lako nam je da pevamo a, e, i, o, u, i u nekoj pesmi. Kad se peva bilo šta, tipično se ono na što pevač može duže da se zadrži, upravo su vokali, oni mogu dugo i relativno lako da se pevaju. Za razliku od, recimo, praktično to gotovo nije u jednoj pesmi da ne čujemo ili nešto u tom smislu. Ili B, ako i pevamo čak B ili šta god, praktično pevamo glas A, kao če. Dakle, postoji glas A, u engleskom recimo, bez bilo kakvih problema. Postoji u srpskom praktično, naročito u dijalektima. Recimo plug, kao plug. To postoji dakle i u srpskom. Dakle, da, vokali, odnosno samoglasnici se relativno lako pevaju jer nema ništa naročito što pravi ovu constriction koju smo pomenuli, ovu obstacle. Nema ništa što pravi što na bilo koji značajan način blokira tu vazdušnu struju koja nam dolazi iz pluća. Okay, and how do we classify them generally speaking? What are the criteria that we used? Mariana, you can go on.
There are, we can classify them by part of tongue involved.
Yeah, by the part of the tongue involved. So sometimes it is the back part of the tongue that is more involved, as in the production of, for example, ah, where the tongue goes back, the back part of our tongue actually goes up, so that the doctor needs to press it down using the spatula when he or she wants to examine our throat. Okay, so sometimes it is the back part of our tongue that is more involved, sometimes it is the front part of our tongue, and so on. What else do we have here as far as the criteria are concerned? It's all here in the slide, so I'm using this to help you.
Also degree of openness.
Yeah, degree of openness of the mouth. So what are some of the quite open vowels, namely those vowels where the mouth is quite open? According to the diagram. Can we read the diagram? Or to use the same thing that I used last time. Well, which sound does the doctor tell us to pronounce when he or she wants to examine our throat? Is it ooh?
No, it's ah.
It is ah, because it is quite open. We open our mouth quite a lot. So this is a closed position, more or less, half closed, half open, and open. So the open vowels are, for example, ah, or oh, or eh, as in man, or as in bad. That was very bad, bad. Okay. There was a strange man. So eh is also quite open. Okay, then what?
Length.
Length, they can be generally long and short. Then depending on whether there are one or two or even three sounds in a single vowel, making up a single vowel, they can be
monophthongs, diphthongs, and triphthongs.
And triphthongs. And mind the spelling of this, and as far as their voicing is concerned, all of them are
voiced.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much, Mariana. Okay, let's now move on to the handout. So here it is. That writing is often an imperfect means of representing speech is perhaps most obvious in the well-known inadequacies of English spelling. Look at the following groups of words, compare the orthography, namely the graphic symbols or letters used in writing, with the actual sounds of English, and try to discover the relevant discrepancies, and the first one has been done for you. So this is what we mentioned last time. Namely, we can actually write quite a lot of different things, such as EA, or double E, or EI, EY, or EI, or EO, or IE, or just E, or AY, and so on. And maybe incredibly enough from the point of view of Serbian, all of these things are read in the same way, as long E. Meat, meat, key, ceiling, people, niece, evil, key, and so on. And we have a similar thing in to, to, through, clue, shoe, and so on. So quite a lot of different spellings here. Double O, then W, double O, O-U-G-H, and so on, and all of them are read in the same way as long U. What discrepancy do we see here in damage, educate, and picked? Well, okay, let's say Jovana, or then we can hear Luke. Oh, if we haven't heard Luke, I think we have heard Luca today, actually. Jovana?
What I think we have here is that the sound for the letter D, orthographically represented as D, may differ considering the situation found in. For example, in damage, we have a clear D.
Yeah. In educate,
it's a little bit softer, sounds a little bit softer, leaning towards J almost.
Yeah, it's almost like J. And in picked?
Exactly. We have a clear T. Almost.
We have a clear T. That's it. So here in damage, we have a clear D. In educate, it can be J indeed, or it can also be educate, but still it sounds quite similar to J. And in picked, it is just T. So here we write practically one and the same letter, but pronounce it in 3 different ways, as D, almost like J practically, and T. What about the next group of examples? Jovana, please go on. Ni, lamb, please go on reading these things.
Gnaw, receipt.
No,
okay.
That thing gnawed at him, tearing him from within. Yeah.
Honor, rhyme.
Oh, what about this word?
Which one? Did I miss?
Here that I'm circling.
Oh, receipt.
Receipt, okay. So no P letter, no P letter is pronounced.
Rhyme.
Right.
I stopped honor.
Okay.
Honor, rhyme, salmon, rice.
It's not salmon, no.
Oh, how do you pronounce it then?
Salmon.
Salmon.
That's salmon. There no L sound is heard.
Okay.
Salmon, or is pronounced. Salmon.
Then we have right and island.
Okay, so what's the discrepancy here between spelling and pronunciation? So once again, ni, lamb, no, receipt, right, Anna, rhyme, salmon, and so on. So what's the discrepancy here?
Well, certain sounds in English are silent.
Indeed, or actually certain letters are not pronounced. So these are not sounds. K is not a sound. K is something that's written here. So some letters are actually not pronounced at all. In, for example, some, neither P, the P letter, or the L letter are pronounced. In salmon, the L letter is not pronounced at all. It's salmon, it's not salmon. Okay, that's enough. Jovana, thank you. Let's now have yet another one of you. Well, Leah, for example. Leah,
okay.
Would you like to go on?
Yes. So,
what about throne, chain, edge, shore, nation, itch, in, school, eat, friend?
Well, we noticed that in these words, one sound is represented by 2 letters.
Indeed. So 2 letters, or even sometimes more than 2 letters, and it's actually as in lieutenant or lieutenant. So we have 2 or 3 letters and a single sound. So TH is th, CH is ch, G is J, and so on and so forth. What about, in a way, sort of a discrepancy here? Dinner as opposed to diner. Dine versus din. First of all, what's diner? There is indeed such a thing in English as a diner. So the first one is dinner, the second one is diner. What's a diner? So let's first establish that we understand what all of these things mean. What does a diner mean?
Can
Can I?
Yes, please.
Although I'm sorry, I did not raise my hand.
It's
but I can.
okay. It's okay.
A diner is basically like a restaurant
Yeah.
of some sort.
Yeah, it is. It is a small and cheap restaurant, usually open all day and very often by the road. Dakle, oni obični jeftini restorani koje neretko viđamo recimo u američkim filmovima. Svrati neku, tu je neko pored puta, običan restoran, najobičnije i sedište i sve, najobičniji tako hamburgeri ili šta već i to je to, ali puno ljudi se tu skuplja, je jeftino, nije pa možda ni loše. Ok. Dine, u redu večeravati, a šta je din? What is din? There was quite a lot of din there. So here it goes. A din is a very loud and unpleasant noise that lasts for some time. They try to make themselves heard over the din of the crowd. So din or racket, velika buka i tako koja traje dugo, posebno recimo tako u gradovima, pa saobraćaj, pa puno ljudi i tako dalje, to je din, buka. Najčešće tako gradska buka. Din. Ili radi neka mašina i to toliko dugo i jako radi i smeta nam, to je isto din. Takva vrsta. Okay, so what do we see here? Dinner, diner, dine, din. What does this example tell us about in a way, as far as this sort of discrepancy between spelling and writing is concerned? Namely, when we have a double consonant here, what happens to the previous vowel, dinner? And now, in the second example, or in the, here in diner, there is only one consonant, so there is this N letter, and something happens with the vowel. It is not short anymore. It's not dinner. It's not E. It's I, diner. So what's the rule in a way?
You're asking me still, or
well, if you wish, you can continue. Is that Jovan or who?
This is Leah.
Oh, Leah. Okay, fine. Leah, yeah, you can go on if you wish.
So, what we notice in these examples is that we sort of have written the same three group of letters in each of these words, but we pronounce them differently because
we pronounce the vowel in front of them differently.
Yes, differently.
But the vowel, we do not pronounce them differently, meaning the consonants or the consonant n. We pronounce the vowel in front of the consonant differently. That's not the same thing.
Yes, that's what I meant. We pronounce the vowel differently when, for example, we have the double N.
Yeah.
After the vowel, we pronounce it as E sound.
Okay, so it is a short vowel then. And what happens with the pronunciation of the vowel when there is just one consonant, not two, followed by yet another vowel here?
Well, we pronounce the vowel.
The vowel
like
is actually, yeah, it is a diphthong now. It's I, dina, and all diphthongs are long because they're diphthongs. Triphthongs are also considered long. So once again, when there is a double consonant in front of a vowel, we pronounce that vowel as a short one, dina. When there is a single consonant followed by yet another vowel, we pronounce the vowel in front of that as a long one, dina, not a dina. Okay, what about this is quite easy, box and Xerox. So we write one letter practically, and how do we pronounce it? Leah?
Well, we can pronounce that X letter, we can pronounce it as we see in this example as X. For example,
no, as box. We do not say bo X, we say box. So just this particular letter is pronounced as two sounds, K and S, not as X, but as just K and S, box.
And
what about one? Or universe? One, here in the last example, one. W. We do not say on or something, we say one. So what's the discrepancy here?
Well, we write the letter O, and we can pronounce it in many different ways.
But how is it pronounced here?
It is pronounced as wa.
Okay. So sometimes some sounds do not have a direct graphic representation. So although in some other situations we could represent w as w, it doesn't work here. So sometimes some practically speech sounds are not directly represented in any way. So we write this particular letter here and we pronounce it as y practically, or u even, universe. Okay, let's now move on to the second task. Write a phonological symbol for the first sound in each of the following words and describe that sound phonetically. The first one has been done for you. So this first word is read as psycho, psycho. It's not psycho or something like that. So we now write the phonological symbol for the first sound, which is s, and not, for example, f. S, that's voiceless. Where does our tongue go as we pronounce it? Well, more or less the middle part of our tongue presses against the alveolar ridge. That's why it is alveolar, and it is also by the place of articulation and by the manner of articulation, it is a fricative sound. Why a fricative? Because quite a lot of friction is made by putting the tongue quite close to the alveolar ridge, but not completely against the alveolar ridge. Because if it made a complete obstacle, we would make a stop practically. We would make something like we have already seen in these handouts, and that is just a mo. And that would be a D sound, rather than, for example, a Z sound, a S sound, and so on and so forth. So quite a lot of friction is made because not a full obstacle is made by putting our two speech organs together, but simply by making them as close as possible, which makes quite a lot of friction when the air comes out through that tiny spot in a way. So Z, S, and so on. Okay, let's now move on. So it's here. Judge. Thank you. Let's now have yet another one of you. Well, Igor, would you like to continue? What's the first sound in judge?
J.
J. Okay, so J. It's not the same thing as Serbian J. So the places of articulation are a little bit different. It goes a little bit further back in English. Okay, J. What about J? Is it voiced or voiceless?
I believe that it is voiced, although I'm not sure.
Okay, it is voiced. What else? J. Where does our tongue go here? Against what part of our mouth in a way? What does it almost press? I mean, it does press it at a point.
Against the bottom most part of our mouth.
It has its technical term. So what you said is okay, but that's not talking linguistics. That's in a way layman linguistics. Layman u smislu osoba koja nije upućena u lingvistiku, a mi treba da smo upućeni u lingvistiku. So what's the technical term that's used? So we're talking linguistics now. This is Introduction to Linguistics and English Language Studies.
I do not remember.
It's here. Can you find it and interpret its position in a way? So you are right about its being voiced.
Is it alveopalatal?
Yeah, alveopalatal. Naime, tom delu naših usta, da tako kažem, zaista je tako, se naš jezik približava. Na tom alveopalatalnom regionu. Alveole su one ide usta iza naših zuba koji je onako nazubljen, da tako kažem, koji je kao neki greben. Tako se i zove alveolar ridge, alveolarni greben. Dakle, to je neki greben sastavljen od alveola, to je tog kako da kažem, nazubljenog, naboranog dela naših usta praktično. A i blizu je ovog palatalnog regiona, gde zapravo nema nikakvih takvih nabora, nego je to skroz ravno i to možemo da napipamo jezikom without any problem. Okay, so it is an alveopalatal sound by its placer articulation. And what about its manner articulation?
In the
as in judge.
In the manner of articulation, it's an affricate.
It's an affricate, meaning what? What are affricates? Only j and ch are affricates. What does that mean? Why affricates? And does it have anything to do with Africa as a continent?
Well, now that you have now that you have mentioned it, I believe it does.
No, it doesn't. No, do not be tricked by my questions. No, it has nothing whatsoever to do with Africa as a continent. No. That's what we explained last time.
All right,
what are affricates? Why are they called affricates? And there is this fric part, so to say, as in fricatives. So why not simply say fricatives? Why say affricates? Namely, affricates are combinations of two other manners of articulation, including fricatives. So what else are they a combination of? So affricates are combinations of fricatives, and what else? Yeah.
Trying to figure it out.
So, and also try to figure it out, so to say, experientially, namely simply pronounce j and ch, and try, to describe what goes in our mouth as we pronounce either j as in judge or ch as in church. Does the tongue, at least briefly, form a complete blockage or constriction to the airflow coming out of the mouth? Church. Does the tongue press against the alveolar region?
It does. In church it does. Although in judge it doesn't.
It does both ways. Well, they wouldn't be affricates. It does. J, I really do. So when I pronounce j, I really do press a part of my tongue, let's say maybe the front to middle part of my tongue, against the alveopalatal region. But then do I release it suddenly, or does my tongue remain relatively close to that alveopalatal region? Sh, j, j. For example, b, we simply open our mouth and that's it. But in j, what happens? And once again, why are affricates called affricates? And which other two types of manner articulation are they combinations of?
Perhaps of approximates.
No, most definitely
approximant.
Oh, no. So I'll help out, and it's okay. So practically affricates are combinations of the first two, namely of stops or plosives and of fricatives, and they're called affricates. So once again, they're combinations of stops or plosives or fricatives. Well, what does that mean in practical terms? So how is it exactly that they're produced? Well, in the production of both j and ch, which are the only two affricate sounds in English practically, together with actually y, they're the only alveopalatal affricates. So how do we pronounce them actually? Well, first we make a complete stop to the air or blockage or constriction to the airflow coming out of the mouth by pressing a part of our tongue against the alveopalatal region. And then we release that obstacle, but not too much, so that once again quite a lot of friction is once again created in their production. So their combinations of stops and fricatives, and such sounds once again are called affricates. So once again, the j sound in judge, and that's what we're currently talking about. We're currently talking about this example under B in exercise 2. So j by voicing is voiceless. No, it is a voice sound. It is a voice sound, as you yourself said. It is a voice sound. It is alveopalatal by placer articulation, and it is an affricate by the manner articulation. Please go on, Igor. Thomas. Thomas.
Thomas.
It can be both Thomas and Thomas. Very often it's Thomas with t, as in tea, or Tom simply, or take an exam. And mind you, the Serbian th and English t are not the same thing. And we'll talk about that later on the following 2 weeks when we talk about phonology. So t, Thomas. What about t?
Well,
this is meant to help you now.
Yeah, the tongue goes in between the teeth when making the
no, it doesn't.
Sound.
No, maybe it presses the back part of the lower teeth, but it does not get in between. Okay, maybe you're talking about th. So are you talking about th or th? I think that both are possible.
I was referring to th.
Th. Okay, you're fine. If you're talking, which is possible, Thomas. Okay, th. Okay, is it voiced or voiceless?
Yeah. It is voiced.
No. As opposed to the. So we have the, where there is quite a lot of voicing in this, and in Thomas or thin or something like that, we have there is no voicing there. Okay, so no voicing, it is voiceless. Then, you said the place for articulation is interdental. Now that you're talking about the, that's okay. What about its manner of articulation?
It is a
yeah. Quite a lot of friction. Okay, fine. There should be enough. Let's now move on to some other examples, and let's move on to...
Can I join, please?
Yes, please. You are?
Dimitria.
Dimitria. Let's move on to the following 2 or 3 examples. Though easy, and let's say pneumonia. Though. So the. We're now discussing the. And let's now not use the table for the. Yeah.
Okay, sure. It's also labiodental, such as...
Sorry, please. You're Dimitri. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also labiodental, like the last example.
The is not labiodental. The. We put our
interdental.
So first of all, is it voiced or voiceless? And we cannot say it is also labiodental because the is not labiodental. The is interdental.
I realize
labiodentals are th and the. Okay.
Yeah, I corrected myself. I don't know.
Okay. Yeah.
It's interdental. Okay. It's voiced.
It's voiced. So quite a lot of voicing, quite a lot of vibration in our larynx.
Right.
Okay. Fine.
And by the manner of articulation, it's fricative.
No, that's not the place. That's the manner of articulation.
Yeah, I said the manner of articulation. I said the manner of articulation.
So which one? I didn't hear you. You may have said it, but I didn't hear you.
As for the manner of articulation, it's fricative.
As far as the manner articulation is concerned, it's a fricative. What about the placer articulation?
Interdental.
Dental or interdental, indeed. So here it is, just a mo. So the is here,
Yep.
so it is a voiced interdental fricative. Okay, so first voicing, then the placer articulation, then the manner articulation. Fine. What about easy? And mind you, we're now discussing a vowel. So they have a different set of criteria for classification, or a different set of classification criteria. So what about the long E, or E with a colon, colon of dvotečka?
Hold on, 1 moment.
Yeah.
E, as for the degree of openness of the mouth,
yeah,
it's half open.
No, it isn't. No.
Is it not?
No, it isn't. So let's find it here. It's somewhere here. So long E is here in the upper left corner of this diagram. E. The doctor would never tell us to say E. You said it was something like half open to open. But if it were almost open, which is practically what you said, then the doctor might as well tell us to say E, but he or she doesn't do so. Namely, it's a close vowel. It is not a closed vowel.
All right.
Because the mouth is not completely closed. But the mouth is kept pretty much in a close position. Dakle, skoro zatvoreno. So close. What else? Which part of the tongue is involved according to the diagram?
The front part of the tongue.
The front part of the tongue? Aha, and here it's described already. So in the third row. Then what about the length?
It's long.
Yeah. Are there 1 or 2 or 3 sounds in this one and the same vowel?
There's only one sound.
So it's a monophthong, and mind the spelling of monophthong, especially in the exam.
Right.
Okay, and what about voicing? Just like any other vowel, it is
a voiced.
It is a voiced one. Let's now move on to pneumonia. So do we hear any p sound here?
No, not at all.
No, so it begins in the n sound. So let's, of course, now describe n. What is n by voicing? So quite a lot of vibration.
Yeah, it's very much voiced.
Yeah, it's voiced. What about its placer articulation? No. Which part of the mouth, of the upper part of the mouth, does our tongue press when we pronounce it?
Alveolar?
Alveolar, indeed. You are right.
Alveolar, yes.
Alveolar. And what about its manner articulation?
It's nasal.
Yeah, it's nasal. The area goes out of the nose. So practically, we do not need this table here. Just a moment. We do not need this table here at all. So we simply ask ourselves, when, for example, the n consonant is concerned, well, do the vocal cords vibrate or not? What does our tongue, for example, do as we pronounce it? Which part of the mouth does it press practically? Where does the air go? And so on and so forth. So first, it is not the case that there were first some rules by which people should abide. No, first there were some phenomena, so to say, and people wanted to describe them. So this is what those people came up with. But if it is some people who came up with all of these things, well, we are also people. We also have the brain. We can also think. So there is no reason why anybody else should be in a way smarter than us in that sense. If we think carefully enough, if we rely on common sense and on logic, well, we will get up the same. We'll get to the same conclusions practically. So yes, n is a voiced alveolar nasal. And that's enough as far as Dimitri is concerned. Dimitri, this was also really great. Let's now hear yet another one of you with the example, with the next 3 examples: phone, perfume, and rhetoric. So that's, who do we now hear?
Can I go next?
Yes, please. Who are you?
Alexandra.
Alexandra, fine.
Okay, so yes. first we have phones. F.
So it's not the F. We're talking about the F sound. So it's not the F sound. There are 2 sounds here, A and F. So let's focus on F. There is no F sounds. It's not a phone. It's just phone. So it's one thing to talk about letters and quite another thing to talk about sound.
Okay.
The th sound. Do the vocal cords vibrate?
It's voiceless.
Yeah, it's voiceless, so they don't vibrate. Well, as far as the placer articulation is concerned, so what do the parts of our mouth do as we pronounce it? Th. So we press the upper, practically, teeth against the lower lip, or indeed, the lower lip. So what kind of a sound is that by the placer articulation? That's to say, where, by which speech organs is the airstream coming out of the lungs practically constricted?
It's labiodental.
Labiodental. Da, to je ono što pravi tu obstacle, tu prepreku koja se javlja na putu vazdušne struje i koja praktično dolazi iz pluća. Dakle, udahnemo vazduh i onda dok izdišemo, vi praktično dok govorimo, vazduh nam izlazi iz pluća i mi nešto radimo i našim usnama, jezikom i ovim mekim necem koje može da se pomeri, zubima koji naravno ne mogu da se pomere, usnama koje naravno mogu da se pomere i tako dalje. Dakle, u jednom trenutku nam je potrebno da bismo rekli šta god da hoćemo, da kažemo recimo phone ili šta god u tom nešto što ima f u sebi, šta onda radimo kad hoćemo i to je sve nesvesno praktično. Tek ovako na ovim časovima mi postajemo praktično svesni onoga što nam je najnormalnije da radimo. Dakle, f, pritisnemo gornje zube od donje usne i tako dobijemo ovaj labiodental sound. Labiodental in terms of the placer articulation. In terms of the placer articulation, once again, so quite a lot of friction. So they are
fricatives.
Fricatives indeed. Dakle, ovdje se javlja puno frikcije, odnosno trenja. Zašto? Evo još jedan put sada i na srpskom, ranije bilo na engleskom. Otkud to trenje? Zašto oni nisu samo plozivi, recimo? Pa zato što kad kažemo f, non stop ovaj airstream nam izlazi iz usta, da tako kažemo, ova dakle vazdušna struja, pre nego li da smo je potpuno blokirali kao b, pa se onda kao čuje neka laga eksplozija, još jedan put b, p. Ne, ovdje non stop vazduh izlazi iz usta. Ali opet, dakle, ipak prolazi taj vazduh. Ali prolazi nam praktično tu malo između jezika, zuba i to stvara puno frikcije. Dok, recimo, dok govorimo nema nikakve naročite u tom smislu frikcije. Ok, dakle, još jedan put. Šta smo rekli za ovo p? Da je to jedan voiceless, f, jedan voiceless labiodental fricative. Ajmo naredno. Perfume.
Perfume,
and let's check what we have just said about th in phone. So here it is. It is a voiceless labiodental fricative. So exactly as we described it. Perfume.
It's voiceless.
Yeah, p is voiceless.
It's bilabial.
Yeah, bilabial. B. We press both our lips together, and that's how we make the constriction to the airflow coming out of our mouth. So that constriction is made by pressing our lips together. That's what determines the place or articulation of the sound. Okay, and finally, it's a stop or a plosive. Okay, fine. Thank you, Alexandra, very much. You can do the rest at home, and we move on to the next task. Choose the odd one out. Dakle, nađimo uljeza, ili kaže se nađite uljeza, and write the phonetic symbols for the sounds you relied on when making your decision. The second one has been done for you. So, just a mo. Would, should, shoulder, and could. So if we focus on how we pronounce these OU sequences when they are written, it is 3 times U as in would and should, and once, and also in could, and once ow as in shoulder. What about your, court, neighbor, and paw as far as the OU sequence is concerned? Anyone?
Can I?
Yes, please, you are?
Okay.
You are?
Maida.
Maida, fine. Please go on, Maida.
The odd one is neighbor.
Okay, fine. So here it is. I believe I put it here. Yeah. So your, court, neighbor, and paw. So it's 3 times O and once this A thing for the same sequence of letters. What about, let's now focus once again on the OU part. Accountant, country, count, fountain.
Country is the odd one.
Country, country, count, fountain, accountant. You are right. Okay, so here it goes. Accountant, country, count, fountain. So here we have short A, and in all the 3 other cases we have ow. Please go on, Maida.
Enough is the odd one.
Okay, please read all of them.
Enough, true, rough, and
It's not
tough.
true. No, it's not true. Or through. It isn't even through. Dakle, ne piše recimo th, rough ili nešto u tom smislu. Piše trough. It's not true. Please go on. What about R-O-U-G-H? That's easy.
Rough and
tough. And tough. And this is actually not true or through or something like that. No. What is it? T-R-O-U-G-H. So this was also for you to do for homework. This is anyone?
Trough?
No, it's not trough. No.
It's trough.
It's trough. What does trough mean? So who said trough?
Kao korito.
And who are you?
Zorana.
Zorana, okay. Kao korito, that's right. So trough is a long, narrow, open container for animals to eat and drink from. Dakle, korito, to je korito. Trough. Korito može da se javi, da tako kažem. Ajde da pokušam da ga nađem. Ovde. Trough. Ajde recimo images. So this is a trough. Može imate, ovo su sve korita. So a long, narrow, open container for animals to eat and drink from. Trough, ajde in maths. Maths, ovako. Da vidim da li ću ga naći. Ovo bi bili trough in maths. Dakle, kada imamo onaj Descartov koordinatni sistem, i dole je da x osu, naviše je da i na dole y osu, i sad su ovo troughs kao korita, a ovo bi gore bili crests, kao vrh talasa na neki način. Dakle, ovo zaista i dođe kao neki talas, da li radio talas ili nekakav sličan talas. Ovi donji delovi bi bili troughs, ovo bi bila korita, a ovi gornji delovi bi bili crests. Okay. Let's go back to the handout. So this is a trough. So once again, here we have enough, trough, rough, and tough. What's the odd one out? Either Maida or Zoran.
It's enough.
It's trough.
It's trough. Okay, and yeah. So here we have enough. And also rough and tough. So 3 short A's, so as in cup. Whereas in trough, we have a short O, trough. Okay, trough. Let's do yet another example, Maida.
Drought, bot.
No, it's not drought. No, it's not drought. No. Ovo, šta inače znači ovo drogo HT uopšte?
Suša.
Suša, tako je. A i čita se drought. Drought. There was a severe drought, for example, here in Serbia, well, this summer. There was a severe drought. Bila je jaka suša, jel da bilo je jako toplo, zaista jedva da je palo kiše malo tokom jula i avgusta uopšte. There was a severe drought. Drought je suša. Dakle, drought, onda imamo naravno ought, bought i thought. Šta je uljez ovde prema izgovoru?
Drought.
Drought, tako je. Ok, evo ga i ovde. Drought, ought, bought and thought. Ok, kako da nađete sve ove stvari? Pa rekao sam vam i prošli put, uputio sam vas. Možete naravno uvek da pogledate u rečnik, neki Advanced Learner's Dictionary. što je zgodno, a zgodno je ako treba i da napišete, evo ga ovde, draw GHT, da tako kažem, kliknem ovde na show transcription, već sam vam rekao za ovaj sajt, to Phonetics, to stoji na slajdu, i evo malo niže dobijete drought, evo kako se čita. Odnosno kako se piše koristeći ove fonetske simbole. Drought, dakle ide D, R, au, koji je jedan vowel, au, i to diftong, i na kraju ide T. Idemo na naredna vežbanja. Hvala lepo, Majda. Može ako želi Zorana da nastavi, prosto sa ovim narednim vežbanjima, šta god da je prvo naredno. Aha. Let's also do, well, several examples from this task as well. So write a phonological transcription for the following, just a moment, for the following words. And the first one has been done for you. And hint, of course, consult the Advanced Learners Dictionary. So let's say whatever, Longman or Cambridge Advanced Learners Dictionary or Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary. So any Advanced Learners Dictionary is okay, as well as this website that I just mentioned, or any other website that has to do with I just closed it. Okay, so let's now go back to the handout. Physics. Or actually, it needn't be physics. So, Zorana, are you with us still? Are you still here with us? Zorana? Zorana? Zorana, are you with us? Do you hear me? Zorana? Okay, so anybody. How do you write, for example, what did you put down for Mary and Mary, for the things under G and H?
Can I?
Yeah, you are.
Nicolia.
Nicolia, fine. Nicolia? You can, for example, if you wish, and if that's easier for you, you can share with us your screen so that we can see what it is exactly that you put down. If you find that inconvenient, which is okay, you can simply describe what you have done.
I actually wrote it in the notebook because it's easier for me to write, so it's not really possible for me to stream.
Okay, fine. Okay, and you also could have used this particular to Phonetics, as it's called, website. You just key in, let's say, Mary, and you get the transcription practically, which you copy into a Word document that you share with us. That's also possible. That's what actually I have done. Okay, so please, what have you done here?
Well, I think that it's just reversed because Mary is more pronounced with an A. Well, Mary.
I don't know when you say with an A. It's not A. Namely, if it were A, it would be Mary, but it's not.
Not complete A, but rather like with an A and E. So the E is a bit soft.
Which sound did you put first?
E and an A.
M. We're now talking about sounds here. M. Which next sound did you put down?
I put in an A. I mean an E and then an A.
No, you put down E. E. We're talking about sounds. Mary. Mary. What's the third sound that you put down? So it's here. Just a moment. So this is what I'm asking you about. M, E, R, E. Mary. That's it. Mary. Venčati, udati, oženiti. He married, she married her, she married him. To je to. Mary, brate, Mary. Prosto, ne znam, nisam siguran ko je ej neko. Dakle, pričamo o sounds, or the phonological symbols for sounds. A ovo drugo nije to isto, pardon, ovo prvo Mary je srećan zapravo, a ovo Mary, to je zapravo ženiti, izvinjavam se, ili udati se za nekoga, to je zapravo sa malo, da tako kažem, usta su nam to otvorenija kad izgovaramo odgovarajući vowel. Koji vowel tu imamo?
Mary.
Mary, dakle nije prosto Mary, nego Mary. Slično smo imali prošlog časa, bilo je bed. kao krevet i bad piše se bad kao loš. Ili recimo man kao muškarci, obično ali man, a man is a very strange man. I prilično se otvore usta. Man, Koji je simbol za to prilično otvoreno
I think it was an but it had
Kako se piše, objasni nam. Može i na srpskom.
Sa crticom gore, ako se dobro sećam.
Pa ne, obično
Mogu
ne
ja?
tako. Kako?
A je spojeno.
Da, A je spojeno, evo ga ovde, Mary. To je ono o čemu smo pričali prošli put, samo trenutak da pokušam da ga nađem. Evo ga ovaj dijagram. Ovo je obično kao Mary srećan ili bed kao krevet ili man kao muškarci, dakle množina od man. Ali isto je kao i u srpskom. Međutim, ovi Englezi imaju jedno otvoreno koje se naziva ash se piše kao pesak, kao pepeo da kažem. Piše se to je jedan single vowel, nije ni diftong, ni triftong, ne, to je monoftong, samo se tako malo čudno predstavlja jer je između kao a i To je toliko je ovo otvoreno da mu dođe kao a, zato se piše Dakle, ovo je prilično jedno otvoreno i ono se predstavlja ovako. Mary. Evo drugih nekih stvari, sad samo pitam za ove stvari za koje želim da pitam. A šta si uradila za joyous, Nikoli?
Tu sam stavila...
Koji si prvi simbol stavila? Za dž, dakle.
D i j.
I ono čudno da kažemo tako?
Da.
Dobro, to je dž. Dalje šta si stavila?
O i onda j.
Ne piše se tako, evo ga kako bi bilo, oj, ali ne, dakle ne oj, nego baš ovako se piše ovo o. Dakle, ne možemo da pišemo ove simbole na bilo koji način, nego onako kako su ovde dati. Ovde je negde to oj, evo ga, kao u boj. Dakle, ne pišemo oj, nego ovo čudno o i i. Dakle, ne na bilo koji način koji nam padne na pamet, nego na ovaj koji je standardizovan. I ovo važi zapravo kad god imamo oj, praktično u engleskom, tako ga pišemo. Evo ga kako je ovde transkribovano, boy. Evo da ukucam to joyous, dakle joy, pa us ovde. Da kliknem na show transcription, malo sačekam. Evo šta su nam ovde dali. Joyous, to su nam dali. Tako se vrši transkripcija. Dakle, moramo da se držimo ovog što je dato. I praktično ovi simboli se praktično koriste, mogu za bilo koji jezik na svetu da se koriste. Ne samo za engleski, mogu i za srpski. I takođe nije sve jedno da li ćemo nešto... Šta se desilo sad? Samo trenutak, nešto se poremetilo. Dakle, moramo toga da se pridržavamo. Obratite pažnje i na sledeće. Kad se piše ovako R obično, malo da ga odvojim, to je englesko R. Ako se piše krupnim slovima, to nije više uopšte englesko R, to je francusko R koje je uvularno, odnosno resično, kao République Française, R, ili nešto koje god već Francuzi imaju reč gde ima toga R. Dakle, uopšte nije sve jedno kako pišemo. Ako napišemo oj, to su sasvim drugačiji konsonanti ovde. Šta je s ovim dokumentom? Nešto je čudan sad. Idemo dalje. Dakle, zato sam i dao ovo da se uputite, da se naučite. Ako vam se čini teško, obratite pažnju da ćete na časovima fonetike i fonologije transkribovati cele tekstove koristeći ove simbole, a ne samo pojedinačne reči kao ovde. Idemo dalje. Dakle, ne možemo da uzmemo pa smo samo bilo šta da pišemo. Idemo dalje, recimo za attain i za remove. Eto još ta dva. To je bilo
za, kako ste rekli?
Attain i remove. Trenutak jedan da ih nađem. Evo ga pod J i pod N.
Attain.
Attain.
Pa njega mislim da je uglavnom sve isto sem na kraju.
Ako je sve isto, onda je to attain. A nije ni prvo isto. Ne kažemo a, nego a. Koji je simbol za a? To je najnormalniji vokal u engleskom. A u srpskom se javlja naročito u dijalektima. Plug, eto ga plug. Slnce, 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 baš u ovim našim krajevima. Ovaj prizrensko-timočki dijalekt. Slnce. Može naravno i sunce, to bi bio standard, ali može i slnce.
Onda sam to pogrešila, ja sam mislila da se u tom prvom delu uglavnom sve isto i da se samo na kraju stavi...
Ne, uopšte nije isto, i u redu je, shvatam da ovo malo jeste teže, ali zato smo tu da to radimo. Zato je ovo i uvod u anglistiku, i u lingvistiku, ne samo u anglistiku. Attain, evo napisat ću ovde, kliknem na show transcription, kažem se ovo može da se nađe u rečniku, ali ovako je malo možda zgodnije jer se lakše vidi. Evo ga kako je. Dakle, prvo ide ovaj vowel a, tako se piše. Čemu služi ovaj mali apostrof ovde?
Da se označi da ima 2 t.
Ne, uopšte ne. Nema nikakve veze, ne.
A glottal stop?
Kakav? Ne, nije nikakav glottal stop, ne. Attain nema nikakav glottal stop, ne. I drugi je simbol za the glottal stops kao znak pitanja bez tačke dole.
Aha, da.
Čemu služi ovo? Inače, da li se ova reč izgovara kao attain ili kao attain? Attain. Tako je. To će reći, naglasak je ovde na drugom slogu. Ovde počinje, gde drugi slog počinje. Dakle, ovaj vowel čini prvi jedan slog, pa onda ide nadalje ono što je stressed. Dakle, ovaj apostrof se stavlja na početak sloga koji je stressed, koji je praktično akcentovan. I posle toga ide ain. I obratimo pažnju, ne pišemo ejn, nego ain, ovako, attain. A remove, kako bi bilo? Ajde još to.
Remove.
Da. Prvo pišemo R, naravno, i to kao malo r. Ako ga napišemo kao veliko r, ispašće da je francusko,
da bi bilo r.
Inače, i za srpsko r ima pak posebno r, koje zna neretko da bude napisano kao na opačke r. Znači, uopšte nije sve jedno kako pišemo ove simbole. Dakle, ima jedan set od 100-ak simbola, i pomoću njih, nekih 150 zapravo možda, i uz pomoć njih možemo bilo koji jezik da napišemo ovako koristeći fonetsku transkripciju. Dalje, koji je drugi glas kod ovog remove?
Remove, iskreno mislila sam da je tu isto uglavnom prvi deo isti, da je onda samo...
Pa nekako je isti, onda pišemo Ali šta nam je pomoć? Znači, suštinski je bitna ova fonetska transkripcija iz sledećih razloga. Neko ne zna, recimo, kako da izgovori nešto. Jer Englezi, videli smo, pišu si po nekoliko slova, pišu a, e, o, i, e, i, da, duplo, e, ovamo, onamo. I čovek, posebno koji krene da uči engleski, apsolutno pojma nema, recimo, da sve to može da se pročita na isti način. Međutim, ako se da i fonetska transkripcija, pa se recimo stavi i sa dvotačkom, reći će ovaj čovek, aha, gledaj kako se ovo čita, aha, gledaj kako se ovo čita, aha, pa gledaj, znači oni si pišu i o, e, ja, i ne znam, duplo, e, i šta god već da pišu, o čemu smo već pričali, i sve im je to ovo dugo i... To je poenta toga, malo da olakša izgovor, da se snađemo u tom pisanju. To je kod srpskog zapravo prilično lako, jer srpski manje više kako se priča, tako se izgovara, mada nije uvek 100% tako. Recimo, kažemo tipično predsjednik, ali ne pišemo predsednik, nego pišemo predsednik. To jest ispred sedeti i predsedavati u tom smislu, nekim skupom, nešto u tom smislu. Dakle, evo da kliknem za ovo remove, uopšte nije isto, taman posla da je isto, onda bi bilo, čitalo bi se remove, ali se ne čita remove, nego se čita ovako, remove, r, pa ide kratko i, pa ide stress koji nam kaže, ej, nije remove, nego je remove. Dakle, drugi slog je naglašen. Ide M najnormalnije, pa onda ide dugo U. Otkuda znamo da je dugo? Stavljena je dvotačka i na kraju ide ovo V. I tako kad prođete kroz sve ove stvari, dobit ćete ono što sam i ja ovdje dobio. Physics, weather, coat kao mantil, yellow, teas, sve su to reči sa ovog ovdje handouta. Dakle, evo, physics, weather, coat, yellow, teas, rags i tako dalje, ove smo prošli. Thimble, sigh, explode, sad smo rekli remove, clinical, fascinating, imperfection, baseball. Okay, we now move on to exercise 5. Provide 2 alternative spellings for each of the given transcriptions. Okay, what about weather, B? Well, anybody? Thank you, Nicolia. Now we move on. What about weather? Weather?
Can I try?
Yes, please.
Well, one meaning would be weather, like the weather outside.
How do you spell it?
W-E-A-T-H-E-R.
Fine, that's weather. So what's the weather like today? Yeah, fine, that's correct. What's the second weather?
The other would be if we are asking something, for example, whether or not something has happened.
Indeed. How do we spell it?
W-H-E-T-H-E-R.
That's it, weather, da tako kažem vhether. Okay. And now you could be asked in the exam, for example, to use each of them in an illustrative sentence, and what you have just done. So, for example, what's the weather like today? And he asked me, so whether I would be going to Belgrade tomorrow or something like that. Dakle, ovo je vreme, vreme u smislu da li je lepo, ružno, oblačno, kišovito i tako dalje. A ovim weather se uvode zapravo indirect yes-no questions. So, can you play the guitar? He asked me if I could or whether I could play the guitar. Do you go there often? He asked me whether I went there often. Ili nešto u tom smislu. Idemo dalje. Ovdje ste već vidjeli za ovo haja i haja, a za ovo key jedno je skroz prosto, a drugo smo naučili prošli put, a čitali smo ga pred sat vremena. Šta je ovo key? Hoće neko? A ko je sad bio ovo zadnji ko nam je rekao nešto?
Ksenija,
u redu.
Mogu ja i ovaj primjer?
Izvoli.
Jedno key je ključ, a drugo je dok.
Tako je. Kako pišemo ovo prvo?
Ključ je K-E-Y.
Tako je. A ovo drugo key koje smo inače imali gore, evo ovde gde klikćem ili gde pravimo ovaj krug.
U-A-Y.
Tako je, key. Evo ga inače ovde taj key, trenutak 1. Dakle, ovo je prvo kao ključ je lako, a key, so this key, is a long platform beside the sea or river where boats can be tied up and loaded or unloaded. Dakle, ovo mu praktično dođe luka, gde može da postoji bukvalno neki kej gde se ljudi šetaju. Ima veze ovo key i kej, ali pre svega key znači dok ili luka. Dok u smislu gde brod može da se usidri, gde može da se na njega stavi neki tovar ili skine sa njega neki tovar. To je pre svega key. Okay. Well, if you wish, you can go on. What about the next example, horse? So here it is, just a moment. Horse. What's horse?
Should I go on? Because some people raised their hands.
Sorry?
Should I go on?
Yes, please go on as far as horse is concerned.
Okay. Well, one is the animal.
Yeah.
And the other is spelled H-O-A-R-S-E.
That's it. Horse. What does the second horse mean? Piše se horse, pre nego li horse. Dakle, horse, naravno konj. A šta je horse, da tako kažem? Čita se isto horse.
Mogu ja?
Izvoli.
Hrapav glas.
Tako je, hoarse. U redu, evo ga ovde. Trenutak jedan. Dakle, hoarse, ovo drugo je jedan adjective. It refers to a person's voice. So it means, well, sounding rough and harsh, and is typically a result of a sore throat or of shouting, as in a hoarse whisper. Dakle, neki promukao šapat. Hoarse je praktično promukao. He is pretty hoarse, znači, ne znači da je on lep konj, nego da ima promukao glas. He is pretty hoarse. Prilično je promukao. I'm pretty hoarse. Dakle, ne znači da sam ja, plus nema ni člana ispred. Dakle, hoarse je ovde jedan pridev. Ok, neke stvari smo uradili prošli put. Recimo ovo flower, kao cvet i kao brašno. Uradili smo prošli put pear, kao par, kao kruška i kao seći, tipa seći nokte, pare one's fingernails. Dakle, ovo i tekako mogu bez problema da pitam. Ovo road smo isto radili. Road kao put, road. Road kao prošlo vreme odveslati. Road kao Rhode Island, neko nam je rekao prošli put Rhode Island. I beše još jedno road, da, prošlo vreme od glagola ride. Dakle, ride, road, ridden. Ajmo možda još po neku stvar. Days kao dan i to je prosto. A koje je drugo days?
Možda kao dazed, da je kao...
He was dazed by her beauty. His beauty dazed him. Prosto očarala ga ili nešto tako. A recimo rain, evo ga ovde je rain. Rain je lako kao jedno, rain, jel da, kiša. Koje je drugo rain? Koje je treće rain? Možeš da nastaviš ako želiš.
Pa rain kao kiša.
Samo nam uvek se predstavite kad nam nešto kaže.
Milić.
Milić u redu.
Rain kao kiša i Reagan kao vladavina.
Tako je, kao vladati. Na primjer, Queen Elizabeth II has reigned for about 60 something years. For almost 70 years. Dakle, kraljica Elizabeta vlada već 70 otprilike godina. Vjerojatno jednu godinu manje, nešto tako. Od 52. čini mi se. A sad je 21. Naredne godine će biti 70 godina kako Velika Britanija ima jednu istu kraljicu. 70 godina skoro. Dobro, a postoji još jedno reign. Ako želiš, možeš da nastaviš. Evo ovo, aha. O ovome sada pričamo. Ko je ovo treće reign? I zapravo je definisano sad ovdje.
May I?
Izvoli.
Kako se to kod nas kaže zapravo, uzde.
Tako je. A long narrow strap attached at the end to a horse will typically used in pairs to guide or check a horse in riding or driving. Dakle, to bi bilo to. I na kraju ovome smo pričali, uraditi ove druge stvari. Ako niste sigurni za neku od ovih stvari, recite mi. Možda još ovo rays. Rays možda kao zraci sunca ili X-rays, X zraci. Dakle, R-A-Y. A koje je drugo rays?
Povišica.
Može, piše se raise onda. Ok, a ima i još, piše se i raze. Šta je raze? Šta znači to raise something to the ground?
To destroy something.
Tako je, raze i odatle ima i razor, kao bukvalno zabrijanje žilet, jel da, razor. To raise something to the ground piše se raze something to the ground, to znači sravniti nešto sa licem zemlje. Inače, kako se zovu ove reči koje se isto izgovaraju, a različito pišu, imaju različito značenje? Šta smo rekli? Bukvalno isto zvučeće reči, da tako kažem.
Možda su to sinonimi.
Homofoni.
To su
homonimi.
Ne, svakako nisu sinonimi, jer blue i blue, ili so i so, uopšte ne znači isto, a to su sinonimi. Ne, ovo su homofoni, ovo su, da tako kažem, isto zvučeće reči. I ovo smo radili na času. Ova reč može pa, ona se piše na isti način, tačnije to su dve reči koje imaju skroz različita značenja, jer se samo pišu na isti način, a različito se izgovaraju pored toga što imaju različita značenja. Dakle, može da se izgovara i kao wind i kao wind, jel da? Wind kao vetar i wind kao recimo namotati ili krivudati, a winding road, wind a watch, wind a tape, motati ili premotati traku. Sve smo ovo rekli prošli put, i za read i za read. Rekli smo za does i za does. Does kao female hare ili female rabbits, dakle tipa zečice, divlje zečice, srne i tako dalje. To su does. Znamo i za lead i led. Možda ne znamo, a šta je ovo BASS? Kako to može da se čita? Na dva načina. To nismo rekli prošli put, niti za ovo pod D. I ovo je za domaći, pa bih očekivao relativno brz odgovor.
Excuse me, could you repeat the question?
So what are the two ways this word, spelled B-A-S-S, can be read? What are the two ways this word can be read?
Yes, bass and bass.
Bass and bass. Bass, what's bass? As in drum and bass. As in type of music, drum and bass. Bass is zapravo bas, kao da, it's not an instrument. It is the lowest part or tone in music, bas.
Yes.
Kao osnovni, najniži tonalitet, da tako
kažem. Yes, or the lowest male voice.
Ok, bas, u redu. Spremno ne znam tenora i čega već drugog. A šta je bass sa onim otvorenim e?
It's, I think it's, it has to do with fish.
It's a type of fish, grgeč zapravo. Ovo pod D naravno da može da bude entrance kao ulaz, ali može da bude i in trance. He was entranced by her beauty. Bukvalno njena lepota ga je stavila u trans ili nešto u tom smislu. In trance. Ok, dobro, tako smo stigli do kraja handouta. Uradite stvari koje niste stigli, pa mi recite ako ne, kroz nešto treba zajedno da prođemo. Gledajući na samom kraju kursa isto da bude, mada non stop su naravno otvorene, non stop sam ja otvoren za konsultacije. Ali gledajući na kraju kursa. I hoću na ovo da skrenem pažnju, to je onaj dokument koji se nešto rasformatirao dok smo imali čas, sad ću da vidim da li je sve u redu. Sample exam tasks u vezi sa ovim. Evo kako može ispit da izgleda u vezi sa ovim stvarima koje smo sad rekli. Mogu da budu uobičajena pitanja tipa what is phonetics, which subdisciplines of phonetics are there, which one of them did we concentrate on in our classes. Dakle, pobrojali smo ih 4, fokusirali smo se na articulatory phonetics, pa ne znam, vocal cords, šta su i tako dalje. Češće su pitanja ovog tipa, ne da mi toliko nešto pišete, nego možda odmah to da praktično stavite odnosno da odmah stavite u praksu, recimo u chemistry. Write a phonological symbol for the first sound in each of the given words and describe that sound phonetically. Dakle, recimo u chemistry prvi sound je k. Napišete k i to malo k, jer to nije isto što zapravo što i veliko k. Ni, ako je ni, onda pišete ovde malo n. I onda to n objašnjavate, te da je to voiced, pa je place or articulation takav i tako dalje. Idemo dalje. To je isto samo za vowels. Dakle, odredite, kaže vowel sound i recimo u C to je dugo i koje ovako predstavljamo. Pa degree of openness of the mouth bi bilo, jel da, close. Pa part of the tongue involved bi bilo front. Pa ovaj length bi bilo short. Pa ovaj da li je monophthong, diphthong ili triphthong? Monophthong. Ok, i obratite pažnju na spelling ovoga, evo da obrišemo ovo. Dalje, još češća su pitanja ovoga tipa. The first sound in the word psychology by its manner of articulation is circle the letter in front of the correct answer. An alveolar, a fricative, a velar, vowel consonant, or an affricate. So what is it? By its manner of articulation. I onda ne samo da se zaokruži to, nego kaže se explain why you have chosen this answer and for each of the remaining answers, for each of them, explain why you think it is an incorrect one. Dakle, šta ćemo reći? Koji je ovde tačan odgovor? Koji? The first sound in the word psychology by its manner of articulation is koji. Šta je od ovoga? Ne, obrati pažnju, da li je alveolar uopšte manner of articulation? To je place of articulation, dakle no.
Moja greška.
Da?
Pod B.
Pod B je tako je, to je po načinu tvorbe jedan frikativ, što smo već objašnjavali. I onda, dakle, explain why you have chosen this answer. Dakle, koji bi tu mogao da bude odgovor? S. Dakle, za S da objasnimo zašto je, na osnovu čega je on frikativ. Setimo se ove tabele ili još bolje, samo razmislimo logično. Evo ga ovdje ovaj S. On je zaista alveolaran, ali po mestu tvorbe. Zašto je frikativ?
Because it's the manner of articulation, not.
Okay, but there are maybe some. The affricate is also a manner of articulation, but it is not the correct answer. So what makes this a correct answer? So the S sound is a fricative one because the tongue here practically creates quite a lot of constriction when it is placed quite close to the alveolar region. That's how friction is created. Whereas, for example, in affricates, a complete obstacle to the airstream coming out of the mouth is made, which is then released, but only slightly, so that once again friction is made. Dakle, ako samo kažemo ovdje, pa fricativ je manner of articulation, pa jeste, ali je affricative. Pa, znači, niste mi objasnili zašto je baš fricativ, a nije affricative. Dakle, zašto je ovo frikativno? Zašto je ovaj S frikativ? Zato što se stvara puno trenja. A otkud se stvori puno trenja? Pa zato što kad sasvim blizu, kad približimo jezik zapravo ovom alveolarnom grebenu, ali ne stvaramo nikakav constriction, to čini da the airflow coming out of the mouth creates quite a lot of friction. That's why this answer is practically correct, and it is indeed a manner of articulation. Why is A not the correct answer? Well, alveolar is not any kind of manner of articulation. It is a place of articulation. Velar is not a place of articulation. And eventually D is also wrong because it is not an affricate. But why isn't it an affricate? It's not simply enough to say it's not an affricate. Or it isn't an affricate. Okay, but why isn't it? Well, because that's not its manner of articulation. So as opposed to the sounds such as J and Ch, where we first make a complete obstacle to the airstream coming out of the mouth and then release it, but not too much, but just enough for constriction, once again, to be made quite a lot. That's what makes J and Ch affricates, but S is not pronounced in that way. Prođite i kroz ova druga pitanja. Evo još jednog ovdje ovakvog sličnog pitanja. Prođite kroz ovo. The vowel in the word key is short, half closed to half open, and a monophthong. Da li je ovo true ili false? If you have underlined true, you need not write anything here. Onda je sve tačno. If you have underlined false, explain why exactly you think so. Dakle, key, to je ovo i, nije nikakav short, nego je long. Nije nikakav half closed to half open, nego je prosto close. I jeste monophthong. To treba objasniti. Objasnite i ove naredne stvari. Dalje recimo, transcribe the words bed and bed using phonological symbols. Za kratke jednosložne stvari mogu da pitam da napišete fonetsku transkripciju. Dakle, za ovo bed je praktično isto, ali za bed treba da iskoristite i onaj simbol odnosno odnosno ono ae što piše. Dalje, say two words in English that are pronounced as follows. Weather, to je ono o čemu nam je pričala jedna od koleginica pre 10 minuta. Weather, kad nam je pričala jedno je veather kao vreme, a drugo je vhether kao u pitanjima, tako otprilike rekla. And use each of them in an illustrative sentence. Može i bilo šta drugo od ovog što smo rekli. Da li je to pair, da li je road, da li je bilo šta što stoji na handoutu ili što stoji u našoj prezentaciji, ili što je prosto tipa it's i its ili his i his. Oba puta je his. Samo jedno he apostrof s. State three words in English that are pronounced as follows. Pair. Dakle, to su, pair kao par, pare kao seći, pair one's fingernails, pear an apple, I per kao kruška. Define each of these three words and use them in an illustrative sentence. Pair meaning a couple, prvo pair, dakle pair. Pear, pa napišete pear kao jel da vrsta voća i tako dalje. What is the name of the words that have identical pronunciation but different spellings and different meanings? Pa to su homofoni. Give an additional pair of words in which each of them would be pronounced the same way. Dakle, još neki ovakav tip. Da li je to weather, weather, da li je to sol, sol, sol ili nešto tako. I pročitajte i do kraja ovo. I to je to. I pitajte me, dakle, recite me ako imate nekih pitanja, ovako zapravo izgleda ispit. Znači, znam ponekad i ovako da postavim pitanja, ali mi je mnogo bitnije ovo ovde, jer ljudi znaju sve ovo da mi ispričaju, onda kad treba nešto praktično da urade, uopšte ne znaju to. Dakle, uopšte me se zapravo ne tiče da mi neko izvergla bilo šta ovako na pamet, nego da razmisli. Poenta ovih pitanja je da se razmisli, da se daju argumenti za nešto. Dakle, ne samo da se zaokruži A, B, C ili D, nego da se objasni zašto tačno B i zašto tačno ne A, zašto tačno ne C, zašto tačno ne D. To mi je mnogo bitnije od verglanja definicija ovih koje me se zapravo uopšte ne tiču. Jer ako ovo dole znate da uradite, ja ću znati da vi znate ove ovde stvari. Ponekad i ovo pitam, ali ređe. Češće su pitanja ovog tipa gde treba da razmislite. Eto tako. Imate li nekih pitanja? Sad smo se zadržali jedno 15 minuta. Aha, dok razmišljate o pitanjima da dam poen. Prvo je bio Vanja. Tako, bio Vanja, pre nego li bila Vanja, jel sam dobro rekao?
Jeste, bio Vanja.
Dobro, bio Vanja, u redu. Dobro, samo trenutak, pade mi mikrofon. Stevan. Stanković ili koji Stevan?
Stanković.
Dobro. U redu, ups. Stevan Stanković, evo jedan, samo sam u dobru kolonu zapisao. Vanja, još jedan put. Broj indeks... Gde beše Vanja? Dobro sam kolonu upisao, u redu. Idemo dalje, Luka. Je li Ilinčić Luka bio? Mislim da jeste.
Da.
Dobro, u redu. Idemo dalje. Miloš je bio naredni. Je li Nikolić ili koji Miloš?
Da.
U redu. Onda je Mateja bio. Je li ovaj Josimović, mislim da je samo jedan Mateja.
Jedini, da.
U redu. Marijana je bila dalje. Marijana. Je li ova Marijana? Jovanović?
Da.
U redu. Dobro, onda Jovana. Ovac mislim da je bila.
Tako je.
U redu. Onda Igor. Jumić mislim da je bio, to sam na ekranu video.
Da.
Lea. Aha. Lea i Perić verovatno.
Da.
Jedna Lea, u redu. Dimitrija. Ok, Nikolić Dimitrija, ja? Imamo li još nekog Dimitrija? Recite, je li to taj Dimitrija?
She said yes, but
Da, to je taj
Ima
Dimitrij.
4 Dimitrija ovde vidim.
A Dimitrije Nikolić je.
Koji?
Nikolić.
Dobro. Dimitrije Nikolić. U redu, upisao sam kod Dimitrija Nikolića. Aleksandra. Samo ovo, Aleksandra. Samo jedan meč vidim gore za ovo search option. Idemo dalje, Majda. Milić. I ovde jedan poen. Onda Zorana. Veličković. Samo jedna vidim da je Zorana. Onda Nikolija. Stojanović. A da, jedna je Nikolija, onda je to ta. Dalje, Ksenija. dve Ksenije. Koja je Ksenija?
Mitić.
U redu je. I Milić, da li beše Milićević? Milić, da. To je isto point. Ok. Je li bio još na kraju neko? Nisam zabeležio skroz na kraju. Ili je to to? Dakle, suštinski je bitno. Radite tako da razumete šta radite, da možete s tim u vezi nešto praktično da uradite, pre nego li samo neko bubanje. Znači, to bubanje zaboravite. Uopšte vam to ne treba, nego se fokusirajte na praktično i na zdrav razum dok učite. Ne samo nikakvo bubanje, ne tiču me se bubanja, tiču me se ovakva ova pitanja, da znate da se nešto snađete, da objasnite, tiče me se vrlo i da naučite neke stvari u smislu da koristite lingvističke termine, znači ako ćemo da se bavimo lingvistikom, treba da znamo i lingvističke termine. Dakle, nema, ne znam, da opišemo nešto tako kao što bi opisao nekog koga sretnemo sa ulice. Ne, sad smo uzeli da se bavimo lingvistikom i to ozbiljnom, znači ovo su studije lingvistike i to anglistike, anglističke lingvistike, pored ostalih stvari, anglofone kulture i tako dalje, i anglofone književnosti i kulture ovih anglofonih naroda i tako dalje. Radimo i lingvistiku, tačnije anglističku lingvistiku. U tom smislu je potrebno zaista zapamtiti neke termine, šta je to placer articulation, šta je manner articulation, šta je voicing, na što se to uopšte odnosi, koji su primjeri za to, kako uopšte određujemo placer articulation, šta je to uopšte phonetics, kako se phonetics razlikuje, odnosno fonetika od phonology, dakle od fonologije, ili što ćemo tek raditi, ili od morfologije, ili od sintakse, ili od, ne znam, semantike, ili od čega god drugog što ćemo raditi. Dakle, upućujte se, da tako kažem, u lingvistiku. To isto biste radili da ste medicinu upisali, tamo biste se upućivali u raznorazne medicinske termine. Te ovo je koje delom znamo, a delom i ne znamo, recimo i srednje škole i osnovne škole iz biologije, hemije i tako dalje. Da je nešto baš jedra, da su nešto mitohondrija, da je nešto baš takvo i takvo tkivo, a da je nešto baš služokoža, da je nešto baš jedan tip ćelija, da je jedna stvar DNA, odnosno ova ta kiselina, jel da, a drugo je RNA, dakle ribonucleic acid, ili šta je već, a da je jedno jetra, da je sasvim druga stvar bubrega, da je sasvim treća stvar, ne znam nija šta već. Tako i ovde imamo jezik i praktično anatomizujemo jezik, kao što biste na medicini anatomizovali, odnosno ulazili u raznorazne detalje strukture ljudskog tela, a na veterini životinskog tela, recimo pasa, krava, mačaka, koza, ovaca i tako dalje. A na pravima biste ulazili u strukturu i funkcionisanje pravnog sistema jedne zemlje, a na elektronici u strukturu i funkcionisanje raznoraznih elektronskih digitalnih sistema, odnosno da su to kompjuteri, neke mreže za telefoniju i tako dalje. Dakle, upućujte se u ove termine i da vam bude jasno, samo i budite u stanju i da odgovorite na sva ova pitanja, ali ću uvek prednost davati ovakvim pitanjima, gde treba nešto da se smislite, da razmislite, da promislite, da povežete stvari. Eto tako. Imate li nekih pitanja? Odnosno, koja pitanja imate, bolje rečeno? Aha, izvoli mi, Iliću.
U vezi triphthongs, da li će i to da bude na...
Može samo da se pomene. Dovoljno mi je da ste čuli da to postoji. Dovoljno je i za diftonge da ste čuli. Ako još znate da ih transkribujete po neki, znači zato sam i dao onaj handout. Evo ga još jednom handout. Prođite kroz onu fonetsku transkripciju. Dakle, ovo je samo blagi početak. Imaćete ceo kurs gde ćete koristeći ove simbole, P, B, T, koji deluju prilično poznato, ali ovo Č, Č, W, jer ove raznorazne za vokale, rekli smo koliko puno Englezi imaju vokala. I, E, A, O, U, A, as in bird, as in about, A, as in say, out. Cele ćete tekstove transkribovati koristeći to. Pa ćete stavljati stres gde treba, da tako kažem. Pa ćete to deliti u tonske grupe raznorazne i tako dalje. Dakle, dovoljno je da znate da postoje triftonzi, ništa mi drugo ne treba. Nikolija? Što se triftonga tiče?
Uglavnom sam samo htjela da pitam i za fonetsku azbuku isto otprilike šta bi trebali da znamo.
Transkripciju. Ne znam šta kad kažeš, ne postoji fonetska azbuka, postoje fonetski simboli. Da, u vezi sa fonetskim simbolima, šta?
Također
Pitanje šta tačno treba da znate s tim u vezi. Je li to
da.
Budite u stanju da transkribujete jednosložne reči. Kao što su ova. Sit, ten, cat, got, saw, put, nešto tako. I budite u stanju i da ih pročitate, pa praktično ono što stoji na našem handoutu. Na našem handoutu stoji sledeće. Da, recimo, stavite simbol za jednu, kaže, write a phonological symbol for the first sound. Judge. Moglo je da bude write a phonological symbol for the last sound. Moglo je da bude write a phonological symbol for the vowel in Thomas. Ti simboli se tipično stavljaju u ovakve zagrade koje se sastoje od ovih forward slashes, dakle od ove dve crte koje su forward leaning, da tako kažem, i za psycho napišete s, za judge napišete dž, ali ne pišete ga na srpski način, nego kao d i ono čudno, da tako kažem. Za easy napišete i s dvotačkom i sve to imate nazad, znači zato sam to dao. Dakle, upućujte se polako u lingvistiku sada. Dakle, ne može sa onim istim body of knowledge sa kojim ste došli iz ove, pa i osnovna i srednje škole da se napreduje. Ne mora da se nauči nešto novo da bi se napredovao. Dakle, neće ništa da vam fali ako, jel da vidite da postoje ovi fonetski simboli, da je to zapravo i vrlo zgodno za engleski, zbog ovih raznoraznih discrepancies koji postoje između načina engleskog pisanja i toga kako se nešto čita. Ovo je gotovo nepotrebno za srpski, ali i za engleski, gde si oni pišu ovolika silna slova, gde pišu po 2-3 slova, čitaju ga kao jedno, gde jedno isto dugo i pišu kao e, a, e, y, i, e, o, i, e, a, y i tako dalje, vrlo je zgodno imati fonetsku transkripciju. Tako se lakše ljudima pokaže i kako ovo treba da izgovorimo. Dakle, eto, to je bilo ovde na handoutu. Napišite čak ne ni celu reč, što sam ja pisao kad sam u ovom svom pomoćnom dokumentu, nego samo jedan glas, valjda možemo jedan glas da napišemo. A nije ih malo, u engleskom ima 44 foneme, 44, u srpskom 30. Dalje, šta smo ovde imali? Pa navedite opet, konkretno ovde vokal pre nego li konsonant koji, da tako kažem, čini razliku ili koji uljez i na osnovu ovog ovde. Ili pak, u stvari da, onda transkribujete cele reči, tipa physics, weather i tako dalje. Šta sam tu uradio? Pa koristeći se onim web sajtom, a mogu sam i rečnikom da se koristim, sve sam ovo uradio. Ispada, ako samo ja to radim, ja si zadajem, da tako kažem, ja si radim, ne uradite i vi, znači imate sajt, rekao sam, to je ovaj Phonetics, odete tamo, ukucate šta treba i prekopirate ga u nešto, možete i rukom da ga napišete. Evo kako se physics transkribuje, kako se weather transkribuje, kako se code, kaput transkribuje, kako tease i tako dalje, kako rags, kako Merry kao srećan, ili u Merry Christmas, srećan, jel da, Božić ili nešto tako, i Mary, kao recimo oženiti, udati, ali isto tako ime Mary, M-A-R-Y, pa joyous, pa attain. Dakle, sve što postoji na handoutu, odnosno takav tip pitanja, može da se javi ovamo. Ili naopačke, transkripcija je već data, recimo za weather, za higher, za key i nekad samo jedan način ima da se to napiše. Ali nekad ima 2 načina, nekad ima 3 načina kao u saw, nekad ima 4 načina kao u road, pa ih napišite koji su to. Dakle, kako će se javljati ova fonetska transkripcija? Pa ovako kako smo ovde radili. Ili može i ovo. Wind, predstavite mi 2 načina kako može da se piše ova reč, evo može ovde navedeno. Može kao wind i kao wind sa ovim diftongom, I, wind. Pa mi objasnite, a šta znači prvo kad napišemo wind? Pa to je current of air, recimo. A ovo drugo wind upotrebite u nekom primjeru, recimo winding road, što ne znači vetrovit put, to je windy road, nego krivudav put, o tom smo pričali prošli put. Wind a watch, wind a tape, rewind a tape. Ili u read napišete, ili odnosno i read. Jedno napišete sa dugim i jedno sa kratkim, to je s najobičnim e. Dakle, sve ono što smo radili može da dođe bez bilo kakvog problema u obzir. To je to. Još jedanput uvek više insistiram na ovim stvarima gde treba nešto da povežete, da razmislite. Pre nego li bi, i uvek, kao mesto za odgovor uvek dajem jako malo mesta, hoću samo suština da mi se kaže. Dakle, zašto nešto jeste ili nije bilabial, ali da je to tačno i precizno i jasno. Ukoliko god je moguće kraći rečenici, ne trebaju mi nikakvi eseji. Najkraće, u nekoliko reči. Dakle, the last sound in the word comb, obratite pažnju, the last sound in the word comb nije b, nego je m. B se ne čuje. Ne kaže se he combed his hair, nego he combed his hair. Dakle, comb, m, he comb. You should comb your hair. Comb, m. Dakle, taj m, by its manner of articulation, je jelda nasal. Zašto nasal? Because the air goes out of the nose. A zašto nije bilabial? Do sad priča smo da je m bilabial. Pa zato što to nije nikakva manner of articulation. Zašto nije an approximant? Pa nije an approximant because we press both of our lips together here. So they do not simply approximate one another as in w. They are pressed together. So that's why this is not an approximant, although approximants are really types, or to be an approximant is to be a type of a manner of articulation of a consonant. Why is it not interdental? Because interdental is not a manner of articulation. It is a place of articulation. Samo toliko, u najkraćem. Uvek dajem jako malo prostora za pisanje. Samo hoću tačno, kratko, jasno, precizno, argumentovano da mi se kaže zašto nešto jeste nešto ili nije nešto. I to radite i za bilo šta drugo da pišete. Ako ne možete u jednoj rečenici da kažete to, šta je to nešto o čemu pišete ili pričate, šta je to uopšte što hoćete da kažete, što je generalno u redu, onda imajte u vidu, to i za mene važi, da vam nije ili da nam nije jasno što uopšte hoćemo da kažemo. Čini mi se da tek kad znamo u jednoj rečenici da kažemo šta je to uopšte o čemu pričamo, tad nam je jasno i šta hoćemo da kažemo. Dakle, bilabial su ti, na osnovu toga i toga tačka. The place of articulation is determined tako i tako tačka, u što manje reči. Eto tako. Još neko pitanje? Kako vam se čini ovo? To su studije. Dakle, studije su prvo znanje, da se nešto nauči, da se argumentovano nešto kaže, argumentovano nešto objasni, pre nego li napamet samo nešto da se ispriča, da se čovek razmisli i smisli i tako. Izvoli, Luka.
Fino.
Da? Kako, šta? Nisam
kažem fino.
Nisam opet čuo, ne znam.
Fino je.
Okej. Ja sam čuo nešto Filip, pa sam ne znam. Dobro, fino je, okej. Dobro, narednog puta, znači, radimo fonologiju. To je i slično, opet različito od fonetike. Ima dodirnih tačaka, ima nekih razlika, vidjet ćemo već i time ćemo se baviti onda pak naredne 2 nedelje. Vidimo se u ponedeljak. Okej.